Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Welcome to Centerpoint. I'm your host, Dr. Ron Anbar. In this show, we will discuss ways that we can journey into our own centers. This can help us access our inner resources to improve our physical abilities and health, our mental strength, our emotional well-being, and our spirituality. And as this is our inaugural show, I thought I would tell you a little bit about myself and how I became involved in the journey to my own center, as well as helping many of my patients reach their centers. So I am a pediatric pulmonologist. I went to the University of Chicago for medical school. I then had a pediatric residency at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, and that's where I also became a fellow in pediatric pulmonology. And we'll talk later in the show and in future episodes, broadcasts, about how I chose pulmonology as a career. But given my training in Western medicine, I started my practice first in Philadelphia, then I moved to Syracuse, where I served as the director of Pediatric Pulmonary and Cystic Fibrosis Center for 21 years. And that's where, after practicing maybe 12 years as a pediatrician, I met a young man who had very bad milk allergies. In fact, the pediatrician who referred him to me told me this is the most allergic patient he had ever met. And this young man, his name was Paul, he's 17, he'd almost died twice from eating a milk product. The first time he was 7, he required hospitalization, he required intubation, was put on a ventilator, and then he had some brain damage as a result of lack of oxygen and needed 6 months of rehabilitation. And the second time he ate a milk product was a week before I met him. Again, he was put on a ventilator, and as a complication of the event, his lung blew out. And that required putting a tube in his chest so they could suck out the air and let the lung re-expand. After 3 days, the lung appeared to heal. They took the tube out of his chest, but the lung collapsed again. So they put the tube back in, and they sent him to me as a pulmonologist to help him. So when the pediatrician called me and said, hey, I'd like you to see this patient, I said, well, he's 17 and a half years old. He's going to be 18 soon, and then he'll need to go to the adult lung doctors. So why don't you just send him to them now, because I'm kind of busy. And the pediatrician said, no, I think you'd be good with him. So I said, okay, because I'll go along with a suggestion. And I didn't realize that okay would change my life. So later that day, I met Paul. I told him we would take the chest tube out, and if his lung collapsed again, he'd have to undergo surgery to fix the lung so it won't keep collapsing. He didn't like that idea, but went along with the plan. I should tell you that Paul and I immediately connected, that I've since learned that some patients I connect with immediately, and it always works really well when I do hypnosis with them, when I teach them how to help themselves, but I didn't know this at the time. So we took the chest tube out, the lung did not collapse again, and I sent him home. A week later, his mother calls me and she says, Paul has terrible pain at his chest tube site, and he can't walk. And she said, I'm worried he had brain damage again, like he did when he was 7. And I said, well, is he having trouble breathing, thinking maybe his lung collapsed again? And she said, no, he's breathing fine. And I said, well, then why are you calling me? She said, I don't know who else to call. So I said, well, I don't know much about pain, and I know even less about people who can't walk, but I can certainly arrange to admit him to the hospital. And I did. So I admitted him to the neurologist service. The next day, I went on my medical rounds and decided to go say hello to Paul. And I said I'm going to make social rounds because I was just going to socialize with him. And my nurse practitioner came along with me, and we came into his room. He was sitting at his bedside. He was literally shaking and looking very upset. Paul, what's the matter? I said. He said, I'm sick and tired of being sick. Nobody can tell me what's wrong with me. I've had a brain scan. I've had a nerve conduction study. That's when they put needles into your muscles and run electricity through them. And I want to go home. And I sat in front of him, took hold of his hands to steady them. And I said, Paul, you'll be fine. Calm down. You'll be able to walk again, maybe next month, maybe next week. And I noticed that as I was talking to him, he would calm down. He'd calm down. And I said, how would you like to walk now? And he said, yes. So I supported him, and he got up off his bed, and I walked him up and down the hall and brought him back to his bedside. And I turned to my nurse practitioner and said, what just happened here? Was this faith healing? She didn't know. I didn't know. I just laid on hands and he got better. The neurologist didn't know. The neurologist should have known the diagnosis. We'll talk later perhaps about what the real diagnosis was, but I didn't know what it was. I filed it away as a curiosity. I remember thinking if I could bottle what happened here, it'd be worth something. But as I didn't know what it was, I just filed it away. He went home. So I kept seeing Paul in my pulmonary clinic because he had asthma, and about a year later, he came to me and he said, lately, when I've been smelling cheeseburgers, I've been developing asthma attacks. I thought that was a rather strange symptom, but maybe a milk molecule is wafting through the air and getting into him because, after all, he was very, very allergic. And, by the way, it cannot do that. Milk molecules don't do that. I didn't know that at the time, though. So I said to him, well, do you remember last year where you couldn't walk and then you got better? Do you think this could be anything like that? Oh, no, he said, this is my asthma. I can't breathe. I said, okay, well, do me a favor. Close your eyes and imagine eating a cheeseburger. So he closed his eyes. Within seconds, it looked like he was having a really bad asthma attack. He couldn't breathe. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, no, he's going to stop breathing. I have to put him in a ventilator. I said, stop it. And he did. I said, you're kidding me. No, I couldn't breathe. That was my asthma, he said. I said, that's weird. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, you can imagine yourself into an illness? And if you can do that, can you imagine yourself out of an illness? Now, at that time, I knew very little bit about hypnosis. One of my colleagues had taken 100 hours of training in hypnosis, had never used it because she was too afraid of what it might do, but had told me about it. So I thought maybe something hypnotic is going on. And as an aside, I should tell you, there's nothing frightening about hypnosis. If you know what it is, it's safe. If you know what you're doing, it's a thing that you can do very safely and can help a lot of people. And we'll talk about that a lot more on this show. So I said to him, hold out your hand and with your palm up and tell me, do you feel me touching when I touch you? He said, yes. I said, now imagine a glass plate covering your hand. Now tell me if you feel me touching you now. Nope, can't feel you. So I took out my pocket knife that the airlines later confiscated and opened up the corkscrew, and I jabbed him with the corkscrew. Nope, can't feel that. So, whoa, that's weird. Let me see your other hand. I jabbed him with the corkscrew. Ouch, he says. I said, oh, how'd you do that? How did you turn off the pain in your right hand? I don't know. I said, this must be hypnosis. I don't know if it's you or me, but it's worth finding out about. And immediately I wanted to learn more because I saw the potential of what hypnosis can do for you. So I looked around for a psychologist who could teach Paul hypnosis. And I finally found one. And I said, hey, Paul, go see this guy. Have him teach you hypnosis. And I was wondering, I thought hypnosis could help Paul because if he could learn to control his reactions, maybe he could prevent asthma attacks. I said, go see a psychologist. And he said, I don't want to see a psychologist. I'm not crazy. I want to work with you. I said, that's nice, Paul, but I don't know anything about this. He said, I don't care. He's a teenager. So I went to my friend, the psychiatrist, Dr. David Keith, who had worked with me in some counseling of some patients in the past. And I said, would it be okay for me to learn how to use hypnosis so I can teach it to Paul? And he said, yes. He said, all good physicians use hypnosis, whether they realize it or not. Because to be a good physician, you have to talk to your patient in a way that they can understand what you're saying and in a way that is helpful to them. So a good physician uses language, hypnotic language, that helps. Again, they might not realize it's hypnosis, but the reason it works is because there's a hypnotic factor to it. So he said, when you learn how to do hypnosis, you'll become even a better physician. And he promised to back me up if I ran into any trouble. So with that background, I started reading about hypnosis, and I started teaching Paul. So I would read it in the book, and then we'd practice together. And we did that for a good year. Now, let me tell you what I've learned and why you should want to learn more about hypnosis and reaching your inner mind and going on your own journey to the center. First of all, I learned that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So what you've heard about in movies and in magic shows and the impression it leaves with you is wrong. The only mind control is in hypnosis is you learning to control your own mind. So nobody else can control your mind. Hypnosis is not sleep. When you're doing hypnosis, you know what's going on. You could stop at any time. Hypnosis is not unusual. We all do hypnosis all the time. How many of you have ever daydreamed? That's hypnosis. Have you ever gone to a boring lecture and your mind's spaced out? That's hypnosis. Have you ever driven 3 miles down the road and said, how did I get here? That's hypnosis. So hypnosis is a normal state of mind, but in that state of mind, you become more suggestible. You can accept more suggestions. And the reason is that when you're doing hypnosis, you park your conscious mind, and then your subconscious mind can do what it can do to help you. So, for example, let's say you're afraid of having blood drawing because it hurts to have your blood drawn. And I tell you, well, numb up your arm. You'd say, I can't numb up my arm. What are you talking about? But if you're in a hypnotic state, and I say, numb up your arm, you'll do it if it's within your capability. It turns out that a large number of people can actually almost turn off their pain sensation. And the way they do that is by teaching their mind to ignore the pain. And they report, I have no discomfort. So that's the power of hypnosis. And that's what I learned. Now, with Paul, I practice things like turning pain on and off, remembering things better, and then I learned about the subconscious. I read about it in the book. It says, through hypnosis you can interact with the subconscious. I thought that was interesting. And the method described in the book involved moving fingers, allowing the subconscious to move your fingers. So the way it works is the patient puts his or her hand on a flat surface, and the subconscious is instructed, please raise one finger to mean yes, please raise another finger to mean no, and a third finger to mean I don't want to say. And then you can ask yes or no questions. So I did that with Paul's subconscious and started asking yes/no questions, but very quickly got tired of asking yes/no questions. It's kind of irritating because you can't ask a full question or get a full answer. So I said, would you talk to me? And the subconscious said yes. So we planned at our next visit that I would interview Paul's subconscious and have him answer me verbally. And that was a very exciting prospect to me. So this is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar, and we're going to now continue to talk about how I interacted and what I learned from Paul's subconscious. I should also tell you that in this program, the last segment will always teach you something you could do on your own as soon as you stop listening to the broadcast, or even while you're listening to the broadcast. And so I'm going to teach you hypnotic elements that you can start applying to improve your life today. So I knew I was going to interview Paul's subconscious, and I was so excited. I went home and I wrote out 50 existential questions, tough questions, like, have you seen God? What is life? What is death? What is music? What is love? All the tough questions you can think of. And then I met with Paul. He went into hypnosis, and I asked him the questions, and he had answers for every single question without hesitation. Without hesitation. And the only question he couldn't answer was when I asked him, could you channel my grandmother who had passed away? And he couldn't channel her, although I have met people since who seem to channel people, interestingly enough. And then he came out of hypnosis, and he said he didn't remember anything we had talked about. So I decided to ask him the same questions again. And what was fascinating is he gave different answers, much more superficial answers. And that's when I learned that the subconscious has wisdom and knowledge that we don't typically have access to. And we'll be talking a lot about the subconscious on this show because that's where the meat of this is. This is where the core of how we can help ourselves is in the subconscious. Let me share with you an example of the difference between the conscious and the subconscious. So when I asked Paul's subconscious, what is love? This is what he said. Love is a special bond that you build with usually one person. I think it's only meant to be built with one. Love is a one-time deal. It's an experience that you share with someone who you care about, who you would do anything for, go to war for, die for them, cry for them. Love is an unchanging of the soul. And then I asked him, where does love come from? And his subconscious said, it comes from your soul, from your subconscious, from people who surround you, dead or alive, and from God. That was his subconscious response. When he came out of hypnosis, I asked him the same question. What is love? First he giggled. Then he said, love is, I'd have to say, see, I don't know, because I've never been in love. I think, someone who's been in love can give a better definition. My definition is two people who care very deeply for each other. Dramatic difference. And that's how I began to appreciate the depths that we can access with hypnosis. So the year went on. We learned a lot together. I remember one time Paul imagined himself to be with Peter Pan in Never Never Land. And they interacted with Captain Hook. And Paul asked Captain Hook, why is he so mean? And Captain Hook says, well, it's only my demeanor. And Captain Hook says, I don't like people because they make fun of my hook. Now, I thought that was really interesting because Paul was born with a deformed ear and needed surgery to fix his ear. And I wondered whether the deformed hook was a metaphor for this. And Captain Hook then says to Paul, so nobody wants to play with me. And Paul says, well, I'll play with you. And then they played, and Captain Hook became nice. So it's an example of metaphorical work that you can do with hypnosis. I learned many other things with Paul. For example, I learned that the subconscious can write, and he actually wrote poems for me. The subconscious can type, and when he typed, he also wrote poetry. In fact, he wrote a kind of a disturbing poem. It was the second poem he wrote for me, and I'm going to read it to you. And this is what it said. In the event of my demise, when my heart can beat no more, I hope I die for a principle or belief I have lived for. I will die before my time because I feel the shadow's depth. So much I wanted to accomplish before I reached my death. I have come to grips with the possibility and wiped the last tears from my eyes. I loved all who were positive, in the event of my demise. When Paul came out of hypnosis that day, he didn't recognize the poem. He said, "Where is this from?" And his subconscious had written it. And that's when I started learning that the subconscious actually is a source of creativity as well. And I asked him if he knew what the poem meant, and he said, well, he thinks it shows the fear of dying young or unexpectedly. And he wanted me to ask his subconscious what it was about. So I said, ask the subconscious. He said, it's about dying young unexpectedly and fading out like a dim bulb. And then Paul says, well, what did it mean? Or what did it mean when it says, I hope I die for principle or belief that I've lived for? And it was kind of weird. He was asking questions. I was asking his subconscious for answers because he didn't know them. And the subconscious said, when he meant about a principle, he said, such as Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, they taught you can kill a revolutionary, but you cannot kill a revolution. He wants to make a statement about something. And then I asked, what did Paul mean, or the subconscious mean when he said shadow's depth, that he feels the shadow's depth? The subconscious explained, he's been in this situation before, and shadows over me every time I get sick or go to the doctor. The shadow gets bigger and darker. That is why the bulb is fading. So I was worried, is he telling me he's going to die soon? And I asked his subconscious that. And he said, no, he's going to live a long time, but he just wanted to share these thoughts with him. With you. And I said, thank you so much. And that's the story of how Paul's subconscious communicated with me. When we return from this brief break, I'll tell you the conclusion of the story.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Audiobooks gives you instant access to over 50,000 of the best sellers and hottest book titles in romance, mystery, fiction, and many other genres. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Audiobooks to get started.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
More exhilarating talk. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Ambar. I've been telling the story of Paul and how I learned about hypnosis with him. He was my first teacher of hypnosis, He was my mentor. He was my friend. And as we were working together, I said to him, hey, I'm learning so much from you, we should write a book about this someday. And he said, great, you should take good notes, which I did. And in fact, I did write the book, just recently finished it, called Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, A Journey to the Center. And in it, you can read the story of Paul in great detail and about many, many other patients with whom I've helped over the past 25 years. After the encounter that I had with Paul's subconscious, and he wrote that poem that was rather distressing, Paul started having some issues of feeling nauseous and throwing up, and I asked him if he thought it could be a psychological issue, and he got mad at me. He said, everything you think is psychology, because, he couldn't walk at one point, he couldn't breathe at one point, but he didn't like the fact that I thought everything was psychological with him. And then in the spring, about a year after I met him, I got a call from the pediatrician, referred him to me, and he said, Paul died. What? Yes, he went to a party for college, must have exposed to a milk product, and he's on a ventilator, but he's brain dead. And I was floored, and I was upset. As a pulmonologist, I've had to deal with death too many times, but I didn't expect this to happen to Paul, although maybe a small part of me did expect it, because I did refer him to Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish is an organization for people who have severe illness and are at risk of dying. And when I referred him, I thought he was at risk of dying because he had such a bad milk allergy, and twice he had almost died. And Make-A-Wish initially didn't want to take him because most of the patients they accept are people with cancer and other severe chronic disease. But they did accept him, and he actually got a chance to go to the 1998 NBA Finals game between the Utah Jazz and the Chicago Bulls. The Utah Jazz was his favorite basketball team. So maybe some part of me knew. I wondered why his subconscious didn't tell me that his demise was near, and that maybe, I guess, we would both have been alarmed if he had told me that was going to happen, although I guess the poem talked about it. So when I heard of his death, I felt compelled to take the tape I had made when I first talked to his subconscious, to his parents. They did not know the tape existed. I drove to his home, which was about an hour away from Syracuse, where I worked. I met with his parents, and I told them, I want to thank you for allowing me to work with Paul because he's changed my life, and he's going to change the life of many patients I'm going to work with. And I have this tape that you need to listen to. So we go into his room where the tape deck was in his house and turn on the tape. And on the tape I said, have you been to heaven? And he says, why, yes, I've been to heaven, and this is what it was like. I saw my deceased relatives there. I saw my grandmother there, and she told me everything would be okay, and God told me, you're safe, you're in my hands. And I said on the tape, is any spirits around you? He said, yes. I said, well, who are they? He said, the dead ones or live ones? I said, what do you mean? He said, whenever anybody thinks of you, their spirit is with you. I said, well, who are the live ones? He named like 15 people, including everybody in his room who was listening to the tape. And included also his pets, and included 3 teenagers who had died in his town the previous year. Excuse me, those aren't live ones. Among the dead people he mentioned were the teenagers who had died the previous years. And that's where I sort of learned Paul's idea that spirits are with you. And as you might imagine, the next day at his funeral, his words rang in his parents' minds that he, in his own words, described what heaven is like. In fact, I remember his father said to his mother, "That's the sign you've been looking for. You've been looking for a sign that he's okay." And here, in his own words, in a tape that they didn't even know existed, he talked to them. But that's not the last sighting of Paul. So, aside from the fact that I think of Paul nearly every day, I tell his story multiple times because I am so thankful to him for teaching me about hypnosis. And finally, I wrote this book that I promised him 20 years ago. But there have been 3 Paul sightings, or 3 interactions with Paul thereafter. And when we return from break, I will tell you about the 3 sightings. But just to conclude about how his life came to intersect with my life, and to recognize now in retrospect that when we meet people, we affect each other. When we meet people, I believe that it's not by chance. Sometimes it's too coincidental, too amazing to just say, "Oh, this is by chance we met, and this amazing thing grew out of this." So when I look back at my life, and I look back at Paul's life, and realize that I am carrying on his work, and the fact that the universe or God brought us together 20 years ago so that we could learn together, he could teach me what I need to learn, and now I'm carrying it on and helping so many other patients, that this reality speaks to a much greater role of the universe and of God than we typically think of as we encounter things in life. And today, when I meet a new patient and I feel that immediate connection, I know something special is going to take place. And I'm so fortunate that I've been sent so many patients that I can develop such a deep, meaningful connection with very rapidly. Perhaps because of, well, I'm aware of it now, number one. And number two, because I think I'm supposed to help train these kids to do better. We live in difficult times. We live in times where kids are under a lot of stress. The world is under a lot of stress. Politically, people aren't talking to one another very well. We have to worry about climate change. We have to worry about COVID. Social media is a big stressor for kids. And I'm helping kids cope better, and in turn, they help their peers, and I hope they'll help their students and carry it forward. What Paul started, I'm continuing, and they're continuing in this relay that we call life. And this is the privilege each of us has when we're alive, and a way to become more appreciative of our respective roles in life is to reach into our core, reach into our center, find the inner resources, interact with our subconscious, and then put it into action. And that's what I'm beseeching each of your listeners to do. Put into action. Contribute to life. This is Centerpoint, and this is Dr. Ron Anbar.
Make-A-Wish has been granting life-changing wishes for children and families for over 40 years. A wish is something that gives children the opportunity to look outside their illness and restore a sense of childhood back to the child. With the help of donors and more than 43,000 worldwide volunteers, Make-A-Wish has collectively granted more than 520,000 wishes worldwide. Dr. Anbar has referred many patients to Make-A-Wish. To make a donation, go to worldwish.org. That's worldwish.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis. at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
Reach your health and fitness goals. Whether you want to lose weight, learn to dance, build muscle, or just live healthy, Beachbody gives you unlimited access to the nation's most popular fitness and weight loss solutions. Visit our advertiser page and click on Beachbody now.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
All positive talk with a mature edge. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar. I've been telling the story of my very first patient with hypnosis. His name was Paul, who has been pivotal and instrumental in my development as a physician and the ability to help thousands of patients individually and hopefully many more through the efforts of spreading the word about hypnosis and this broadcast. So, as I mentioned, Paul passed away after I only had the privilege of knowing him for a year. But there were 3 events after his death that, to me, reaffirmed the continuity of our relationship. So the first of these events occurred about a half year later. I was at a hypnosis conference, and I mentioned that I started learning hypnosis by reading about it and practicing with Paul, but after a while I had discovered that there are hypnosis societies, including the Society of Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics. At that time, 25 years ago, it's now morphed into the National Pediatric Hypnosis Training Institute, where people who want to learn to do hypnosis with children can get an excellent foundation. And also the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, which is a society I later became president of for a year. So I took some training courses with those societies. And in one such training course, we were taught an hypnotic technique called an affect bridge. In this technique, you have a patient think about something that happened in the past and process it and then bring forward any useful feelings. So we were asked to simulate a patient, and so I decided to simulate Paul when he was 7 years old, when he almost died the first time. And I was still in my grieving process for him. And so the facilitator said to me, so what good came out of that bad event? And I said, well, my parents loved me. I was strong. I came through the rehab really well, and so I came out more confidently. And the facilitator said, that's great. So now imagine a bridge from the past into the present and cross the bridge and leave the bad stuff behind and bring forward the good stuff you've gained. So I/Paul am crossing the bridge. In the middle of the bridge, a thought comes to my mind. This is what I did when I died. Oh, I thought, so when you die, you move forward with the good things from life. Thank you for that insight, Paul. And that was the first Paul interaction after his death. The second one occurred half a year after that. By that point, I had started doing hypnosis with other patients. In fact, I remember when Paul died, I'd called my wife and I said, I was upset, and I said, who am I going to do hypnosis with? And she said, there'll be others. And she was very right. So I first started doing with other patients with lung issues, but because it was working so well, I decided to offer it to kids in general, because I'm a general pediatrician as well as a pulmonologist. And a young lady came to me, 12-year-old, with a headache of a year's duration, and nothing was making it better. She had seen a neurologist, headache specialist. She had been tried on many medications. Nothing was improving. And I talked to her about how she could help herself with hypnosis, and she was interested. And so I taught her how to calm herself using her imagination, and I taught her how to interact with her subconscious. And the subconscious explained the reason she developed the headache was that her best friend had died and she had not mourned for him. And who was the best friend? It was Polly. Polly was her neighbor. Polly was Paul, the same young man that I had lost the year before. And so then we got a chance that was unusual. We both got a chance to talk about Paul. And over the next few weeks, she improved remarkably. She actually told me that she had imagined in hypnosis talking with Paul, and that he had reassured her that everything was fine with him and was going to be fine with her, and her headache resolved. And from this interaction, I learned a cool way of helping people when they've lost loved ones, which is to imagine in hypnosis talking with a loved one. And I can tell you I've done this many times. This works with a parent, if the loved one is a parent or a sibling or a child or a pet. Most often when this happens, after this kind of interaction, people feel a lot better. And when I ask, do you feel that was real? Usually people say, yes, it felt very real. And I guess I'm on the fence of whether it's really real, whether they're talking with the spirit of the departed one or imagined. But I guess it doesn't really matter in terms of healing. People are healed with the process of talking to a deceased individual. That was the second Paul interaction. And a third interaction, oh yes, actually I'm now remembering a fourth one. So the third one occurred 10 years later. I was sitting at my computer, and 2 emails came in a row. One was from a girl named Pam, and one was from Paul. Now, Pam had also died half a year ago, so I 2 emails in a row from dead people. I stared for a while and said, that's rather strange. So I clicked on Pam's email. It was her mother emailing me using Pam's address. Another show I'll tell you more about Pam. She also was a big part of my life for many years. And then I clicked on Paul's email, and it was his father emailing me. His father is also named Paul. And why was he emailing me? Well, he has a neighbor's son. He wants to know if he can refer him to me. And I said, of course, but I thought I'd pick up the phone and call him to find out why he thought of me after 10 years. So I called the father and said, how are you doing, and why did you think of calling me? And Paul's father said, well, I didn't want to put in my email, but last night I had a dream, and Paul came to see me. And Paul said I have to get help for the neighbor's son, which is why I thought of calling you. I said, oh, of course, I'll be happy to take a referral from Paul. So that was the third sighting. The fourth sighting happened actually, or it's not sighting, fourth event, which is really cool, happened with the book. So I got the chance to pick the cover for the book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis. And the cover is of a boy in a kayak on a lake. And the reason I picked that cover is that was Paul's relaxing place on his lake. And so I got to look through photographs, stock photographs of thousands of pictures, or not thousands, but hundreds of pictures of boys on lake in kayaks. And I picked one that spoke to me. It was a black and white photograph that spoke to me. That's the cover of my book. A half a year after that, I'm talking with a young man in my office, and his relaxing place is on a boat in a lake. And I said, oh, that reminds me of my book cover. Now, what I do with my patients is I give them a picture that a picture of what they imagine seeing in hypnosis, I give it as part of my handout. So I looked for a picture of a boy in a lake, and up comes on Google.com comes my book cover in full color, and it said, "Well, here are other pictures from the same day," and it turned out it said where the picture was taken from. It was from the lake that was 18 miles away from where Paul used to live. The picture I picked of the book cover was probably the lake he used in his imagination. What a coincidence, or maybe a sign. This is Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar.
More than 30,000 children and adults of every race and ethnic group in the U.S. have cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a disease causing long-lasting lung infections, limiting the ability to breathe over time. Dr. Anbar participated in research that helped advance survival of cystic fibrosis patients by more than 20 years. He encourages you to donate to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation to help find a cure. It's easy to donate. Go to cff.org. That's cff.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
Constant Contact and your small business make a perfect fit for marketing. They give you what you need to succeed. Fast and easy email marketing at your fingertips. Visit the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and click on Constant Contact to start your marketing.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar. I hope you have enjoyed our inaugural show. I would love feedback. You can contact me at info, I-N-F-O, at centerpointmedicine.com, CNTRMEDICINE.com. I think I missed a point, so let's do that again. Info at centerpointmedicine.com, CNTRPOINTMEDICINE.com. So this last segment of the show, we're going to talk about what you can do on your own. So every week, I'm going to teach you a skill derived from the hypnosis world that you can use immediately. So today, the first skill we're going to talk about, I mentioned earlier in the show about how you can use the imagination to calm yourself. So I will direct you how you can use your imagination to calm yourself, and you can actually do so as you're listening right now or, of course, later. So to calm yourself, you can imagine a calm, safe place. It might be a place you've been to. It might be a place you'd like to go to, or it can even be an imaginary place. And let me explain to you what we're going to do, and then we're going to do it. So you get to imagine this place with all of your senses, what you can see and hear, smell, feel, and taste. And the reason for that is that when you engage different senses, the experience can seem more real. And everybody has a strong sense, so by engaging all 5 senses, we're going to hit your strong sense. And by spending time in this imaginary space, your body will then relax. So that's the whole exercise. So now we're going to do it together, and feel free to make yourself comfortable if you want to do this. Just don't do this while driving, please. And you can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever works easier for you. So when you're ready, imagine going to that calm, relaxing place. And the first thing you might want to notice is what you might see there. What colors are there? Are you alone? Are there nature scenes? Then when you're ready, imagine what you might hear. Is it silent? Is there music? Is there laughter? Are people talking? Are there sounds of nature? And what might you smell there? Fragrance, suntan lotion, fresh air, salty air. And if you touch something, what does it feel like? Is it smooth, silky, rough, wet, grainy? And then when you're ready, imagine what you might taste there. Salty, sweet, sour. And notice how the more you pay attention to your different senses, the more relaxed you can become, the more real the experience can be. And allow yourself to stay in this relaxed space for as long as you need. You can imagine being there for a minute or an hour or a year. Only a few moments will pass in real time. And when you're ready to come back, you can do so, knowing that you can carry the feeling of relaxation with you for the rest of the hour, for the rest of the day, or even longer. And that's a simple relaxation exercise. Now, when you imagine each of your senses, if I did a brain scan and I measured the blood flow in your brain, each time you imagine a different sense, the part of the brain that actually senses that sense lights up, has more blood flow. So what we just went through is a whole brain experience. And because the mind and body are connected, and how your brain feels translates into how your body feels, you just went through a whole mind-body experience. And that understanding is the first step to understanding that you have control over your mind and your body and what information you seek from your inner self. You have control over how to improve your physical health. So much of disease occurs as a result of stress. Majority of emergency rooms and physicians' offices are filled with people who have symptoms related to stress, be it headaches or stomach aches or aches and pains. By learning to control your mind and body, initially through relaxation and other means, your physical health improves. And by relaxing, you can help your mental health improve. Your mental abilities can improve. When we listen to ourselves, we gain access to knowledge from our inner selves, and we can become smarter. And in so doing, we also become emotionally better off. You can become more confident when you know you can help yourself. You can become more secure. You can take on challenges that come up in life in a better way because you know there's an answer there. Because you know, while you may not be able to control the events outside you in life, you can control how you react to those events. And by accessing your inner self and being aware of the resources within you, you develop a different perspective in life. This is a spiritual perspective. You know, spirituality can be defined as being aware of something greater than the self, be it God or an amazing symphony, or amazing artwork, or nature. And when we become aware of our inner self, of our subconscious, we attain a spiritual state that puts things into perspective, that helps us cope better, that helps us deal better with life challenges, and helps us grow to our utmost potential. This is what reaching a center point means. This is the core of the show. I look forward to exploring with you over the weeks to come how people can benefit. And you'll hear from people who have done hypnosis and people who have worked with hypnosis. And you'll have a much better idea of how this can be best applied to your life. Thank you so much for joining us for this first episode of Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar.
Heads up, there's a sound and light chamber therapy offered in La Jolla, California at the Center for Holistic Well-Being. Using light and sound frequency produces an energetic vibration that can help restore our body's cellular, biochemical, and neurological balance as well as help detoxification without harmful side effects. For more info, visit centerforholisticwellbeing.com. Better yet, schedule an appointment. Call 858-215-5489. That's 858-215-5489.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
Get high-quality glasses, sunglasses, and prescription lenses at eyeglasses.com. Choose from over 250,000 items and 400 brands. Already have frames? Get replacement lenses. It's easy. Go to our advertiser page and click eyeglasses.com.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
Uplifting Talk. HealthyLife.net.